Nelson Mandela, liberator of South Africa. Few leaders in modern history have inspired the world the way Nelson Mandela did. A man who spent 27 years in prison. A man who fought one of the most oppressive systems of racial discrimination ever created. A man who emerged from prison not seeking revenge, but reconciliation. And a man who became the first black president of South Africa. This is the story of Nelson Mandela, the liberator of South Africa. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in the small village of Mvezo in South Africa's Eastern Cape. His birth name was Rolihlahla Mandela. In the Xhosa language, Rolihlahla literally means pulling the branch of a tree. In everyday use, it is commonly interpreted as troublemaker. Few could have imagined how fitting that name would become. Mandela belonged to the Thembu royal family. His father, Gadla Henry Mfakanyiswa, served as a local chief and advisor to the Thembu king. Although his family had royal connections, Mandela did not grow up in luxury. His childhood was spent in rural villages where life was simple and traditional. From an early age, he listened to stories told by village elders about African leaders who resisted colonial rule. Those stories would remain with him for the rest of his life. In 1925, at the age of 7, he became the first member of his family to attend school. On his first day, a teacher gave him an English name, Nelson. This was common practice in colonial schools, where African children were often given European names. The young boy who entered school as Rolihlahla Mandela left carrying a second identity, Nelson Mandela. As Mandela progressed through school, he began noticing the inequalities that shaped South African society. Black students attended schools with fewer resources than white students. Classrooms were overcrowded. Educational opportunities were limited. African students were taught to obey authority rather than challenge it. The colonial system expected black South Africans to accept a lower place in society. Mandela began questioning why opportunities were not equal. Why did some children receive better education simply because of their race? Why were African communities treated differently? These questions stayed with him throughout his youth. Although he did not yet see himself as a political activist, the seeds of resistance were already being planted. In 1939, Mandela entered the University of Fort Hare, one of the few institutions of higher learning available to black Africans. For the first time, he met students from across Southern Africa who discussed politics, freedom, and justice. In 1940, he participated in a student protest against university policies. As a result, he was expelled. Rather than ending his education, the experience strengthened his determination. Mandela later moved to Johannesburg. There, he worked various jobs while studying law. He eventually enrolled at the University of Witwatersrand. Johannesburg exposed him to a different reality. He witnessed racial discrimination in cities, workplaces, and government institutions. At the same time, Mandela developed a passion for boxing. He trained regularly in local boxing gyms. Although he never became a professional boxer, the sport taught him discipline, patience, and self-control. Years later, Mandela explained that boxing was not about anger or violence. In the ring, race, wealth, and social status meant nothing. Only skill, discipline, and courage mattered. He also trained in judo, another sport that emphasized self-control and mental discipline. The lessons he learned in sport would later influence his leadership style. In 1944, Mandela joined the African National Congress Youth League. His political journey had begun. In 1944, Mandela married Evelyn Mays, a nurse and fellow activist. Together, they built a family during a period of growing political tension. They had 4 children: Thembekile, born in 1945, Makazawe, born in 1947, who died in infancy, Makatho, born in 1950. A second daughter named Makazawe, born in 1954. As Mandela's political commitments increased, family life became more difficult. He spent long hours attending meetings, organizing campaigns, and challenging apartheid laws. The pressures eventually strained the marriage. In 1958, Mandela and Evelyn divorced. In 1948, the National Party officially introduced apartheid. Apartheid was a system of racial segregation that controlled nearly every aspect of life: where people lived, where they worked, where they went to school, whom they could marry, and whether they could vote. Black South Africans, despite being the majority population, were denied political power. Mandela became one of the leading voices against the system. In 1952, he helped lead the Defiance Campaign. Thousands deliberately violated apartheid laws through peaceful protest. The government responded with arrests and restrictions. Mandela became a target. Authorities repeatedly warned him to stop his political activities. They placed restrictions on his movements. They banned him from attending public meetings. They monitored his activities. But Mandela refused to back down. Supporters viewed him as courageous. The government viewed him as dangerous. As pressure increased, Mandela became even more determined. In 1956, he was arrested in the treason trial. Although the trial lasted until 1961, he was eventually acquitted. Yet the conflict between Mandela and the apartheid government was only growing. In 1958, Mandela married Winnie Madikizela. They had two daughters, Zinani, born in 1959, Zinziswa, born in 1960. Meanwhile, South Africa entered a period of increasing unrest. On March 21, 1960, police opened fire on protesters in Sharpeville, killing 69 people. The event shocked the world. Mandela concluded that peaceful protest alone was no longer enough. In 1961, he helped establish Umkhonto we Sizwe, meaning Spear of the Nation. The organization carried out sabotage operations against government facilities. Mandela spent much of this period living secretly. He moved from place to place to avoid arrest. Newspapers nicknamed him the Black Pimpernel because of his ability to evade authorities. But eventually, his luck ran out. On August 5, 1962, Mandela was arrested. Following his arrest, Mandela was initially sentenced to 5 years in prison. However, a police raid on Lily's Leaf Farm in Rivonia uncovered documents linking ANC leaders to sabotage operations. This led to the famous Rivonia trial. Beginning on October 9, 1963, Mandela and several others were charged with sabotage and conspiracy. The charges carried the possibility of execution. Many expected Mandela to receive the death penalty. During the trial, Mandela delivered one of the most famous speeches in modern history. He declared, "I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." The speech attracted global attention. On June 12, 1964, Mandela and his co-accused were found guilty. Instead of execution, the judge imposed life imprisonment. At the age of 45, Mandela was sent to prison. Many believed he would never be free again. Mandela was transferred to Robben Island, a prison located off the coast of Cape Town. His cell was tiny. It measured roughly 2.4 meters by 2.1 meters. There was no bed, only a thin mat on the floor. A bucket served as a toilet. Each day began before sunrise. Prisoners performed hard labor, often working in a limestone quarry. The intense reflection of sunlight from the white stone permanently damaged Mandela's eyesight. Life was harsh. Letters were limited and heavily censored. Family visits were rare. The emotional burden was immense. In 1968, Mandela's mother died. The authorities refused permission for him to attend her funeral. In 1969, his eldest son, Thembekile, died in a car accident. Again, Mandela was denied permission to attend the funeral. Yet prison did not break him. Instead, he transformed imprisonment into a place of learning. Prisoners educated one another in history, politics, law, and economics. Robben Island became known as the University of Robben Island. Mandela continued studying and developing his vision for a democratic South Africa. Even some prison guards began to respect him. Over the years, Mandela evolved from political prisoner into an international symbol of resistance. During the 1980s, the demand for Mandela's release spread worldwide. Students marched. Governments imposed sanctions. Musicians organized concerts. Millions joined the Free Nelson Mandela campaign. International pressure mounted. The apartheid government could no longer ignore the growing movement. Finally, on February 11, 1990, Nelson Mandela walked free after 27 years in prison. The images were broadcast around the world. The prisoner had become a symbol of hope. Between 1990 and 1993, Mandela negotiated with President F.W. de Klerk to end apartheid. In 1993, both men received the Nobel Peace Prize. On April 27, 1994, South Africa held its first democratic elections. Millions voted for the first time. On May 10, 1994, Nelson Mandela became South Africa's first black president. The moment represented a historic transformation. A man once labeled a criminal by the government now led the nation. Mandela focused on reconciliation rather than revenge. He worked to unite South Africans of all races. One of his most memorable acts came during the 1995 Rugby World Cup, when he used sport to promote national unity. His presidency became a symbol of peaceful transition and forgiveness. After one term, Mandela stepped down in 1999. On July 18, 1998, Mandela married Graca Machel, the widow of former Mozambican President Samora Machel. The couple remained together for the rest of Mandela's life. After retirement, Mandela continued supporting humanitarian causes, education initiatives, and campaigns against HIV/AIDS. On December 5, 2013, Nelson Mandela died at the age of 95. Tributes came from every corner of the world. Presidents, kings, religious leaders, ordinary citizens. They all recognized the extraordinary life of a man who had changed history. From a rural village in 1918, to a boxing gym in Johannesburg, to a prison cell on Robben Island, to the presidency of South Africa, Nelson Mandela's journey remains one of the most remarkable stories of the modern era. He spent 27 years behind bars, yet he emerged without bitterness. He faced oppression, yet he preached reconciliation. He became more than a political leader. He became a global symbol of courage, dignity, and freedom. Nelson Mandela's legacy continues to inspire generations around the world, and that is why history remembers him as the liberator of South Africa.